think? That's what we like to hear. So please help me welcome back John Charles Meyer.
Hello. Does anybody have any questions?
Maybe I'll start it off with the fairly obvious question. Just how much cardboard went into this?
30,000 square feet, we figure, is the minimum. We weren't measuring as we went along, but I did a fair amount of the actual dumpster diving, and I also loaded the 14-foot box trucks that we put stacks of them into, so yeah, we figure at least 30,000 square feet. We ran out 2 different times during production and had to find additional sources, so that was a little bit of a challenge.
Any questions from the audience?
How did you guys go about making all the kind of artwork and the scenes and stuff?
Very early on in the process, one of our production designers, Trisha Gum, got involved. She is from the Robot Chicken universe, Stupid Buddy Studios, and she brought on board a lot of other Stupid Buddy alumni, including her now fiance, the art director, Jeff White. Along with her co-production designer, John Sumner. The 3 of them wrangled in an enormous number of people who we absolutely could not have afforded had it not been for sort of their initial endorsement and the fact that a lot of people really related to the story and just sort of read this script and went, oh my God, you're telling my story, just with this whole idea of never being able to finish projects and jumping from one thing to the next, and a lot of people really wanted to get involved for that reason. We also got some people who were very specifically involved in cardboard art. Our lead sculptor, Mike Murnane, came down from San Francisco. He's actually involved in something called the Cardboard Institute of Technology, which is a real thing, which was news to us. It just kind of became an amalgamated group of people who worked in this medium and knew how to do these things. And the director and his co-writer and I sort of stepped aside and let them work their magic.
Well, people are thinking of questions. Maybe I'll toss another one in. So both James Urbaniak and Nick Thune are pretty known entities. What did they bring to it versus how much was it through what Bill and his co-writer kind of already had in place through the script?
You mean in terms of like improv?
Yeah.
I know that one thing that Bill likes to say, and Bill was infinitely more involved in the editing decisions than I was. I sort of stepped back and let him do his thing at that point in post. But he has said over and over and over at Q&As that James Urbaniak, you could have used any single outtake from any single shot. He said every single one of them was gems. He was just like, it was so hard to choose because the guy is so brilliant. That said, the vast majority of what's in the film is what was on the page. Bill and Steve, certainly there were changes made in editing, also somewhat to some degree in the pacing of it and some unfolding of the story. But line by line, the dialogue, it was pretty scripted.
And the core of who those characters were came right out of the script. Like they were pretty defined characters going in.
Yeah, one thing that Adam Bush, who was Gordon, has said at one Q&A is that Bill did a really nice job of pulling out of each of the cast members, or each of the actors rather, who they really are deep down, and I liked hearing that. Again, certainly it was in the script to begin with, but Adam, having said that, just sort of felt nice in the sense that we cast the right people. We pulled out the personas that we wanted to pull out, so I hope that worked.
Back to the audience. I think I saw some hands now.
Sorry.
Terrible question.
Sorry,
Next.
we don't answer that. It's yeah.
First time in a Q&A. All right. Next.
A little bit of both. Certainly the...
Sorry, for the people that didn't hear, there's a question about the different media used within the film.
There was an instinct and a thought process very early on to use some stop motion animation. So that was planned from the get-go. The zoetrope that closed the film, which actually was the very last thing that we shot, was a bit of an evolution. The art director, Jeff, and the director, Bill, sort of powwowed about how what was originally in the script could be executed, and I think Jeff sort of pushed for the idea of a zoetrope, which wasn't exactly initially what the spinning chrysalis was supposed to be. So some things did evolve as we went along. Another thing that's a little bit different than your question, but that I love to point out as an evolution, was the Kubrick corridor, the sort of hexagonal thing with all the shots of light coming in. That was born of a giant pallet of cardboard that we got, this very thick corrugated cardboard that had those holes already stamped in it. And we sort of looked at it like, what are you going to use that for? Like, you can't make walls out of it. You can see through them. And then at some point, a light bulb went off in Jeff's head. And what if we try this? And that scene had already been written, obviously. It already existed, the sort of Nick and Annie come to Jesus moment, we got to get out of here. But in terms of the visual that it was presented within, that didn't happen until we were in production. We were shooting, and it was like, hey, what if we try this? So some things were very planned ahead of time. Some things were not.
And on that note, one thing I noticed when I was watching the film is that it's a film that wears its influence on its sleeve. It's very clear some of the influence of it, but as the film goes on, it actually becomes more referential directly. Was that an evolution through, like, again, how you just said, the Kubrick thing came later. The direct reference to a zoetrope came later in the production. Was that something that evolved through it, that you really realized that you were, or the team was, referencing certain films and that influence?
No, I think most of the references were pretty intentional early on. I will also fess up to the fact that the two co-writers, one of whom is the director, Bill Watterson co-wrote and directed, and Steven Sears wrote it. They are way bigger film nerds than I am. Their cache of knowledge runs much deeper than mine. But yeah, I mean, the references they made were pretty intentional pretty early on. I'm not sure how much of that actually would have been an evolution.
Right here?
This movie took 6 years to make. Half of that was raising the money. We did not crowdsource at all. We came to the precipice of crowdsourcing multiple times, but we never actually did it. And God, I'm thankful for that, because it's just a nightmare. But raising the money was a nightmare as well. We did equity financing. Essentially, I called 800 people I knew, and 17 of them said yes, but that took 3 years. It was brutal. I never want to do it again. It was an absolutely miserable process.
How did Solar City help you?
Yes, Solar City in the credits. So I mentioned that we ran out of cardboard twice. So first of all, pretty early on in pre-production, the director and I were kidding ourselves about how much cardboard this was going to take. We were like emailing our friends and being like, hey, save your cereal boxes and shit. Like we just really didn't grasp what volume of cardboard we were going to need. And I had been to an art exhibit, actually, on my honeymoon, where I saw this artist make a really interesting use of cardboard spindles that are used by apparel manufacturers, clothing manufacturers. They hold the thread that works in the mills. So I called around a bunch of apparel manufacturers in LA, and I said, hey, do you use these cardboard spools, and could we take some discards from you? And American Apparel said, yeah, sure, we throw those out. We recycle those, whatever. You can come get some. How many do you need? And I said, well, I'm not going to need them for a month or so. And he said, well, we throw out about 1,000 a day, so I can give you 30,000 in a month. Jesus, I don't think I need 30,000 of them, but okay, yeah, a box would be great. So I went by there, and I happened to have my U-Haul box truck, because we were going to go pick up wood for sets that same day. And we walked onto the floor of American Apparel, and the guy was like, yeah, and if you want any of this other cardboard, just help yourself. And it was 8-foot-high stacks of perfectly uniform, multiple iteration types of cardboard. Just stacks and stacks and stacks. He was like, yeah, take whatever you want. We filled the box truck. And we thought, oh, my God, jackpot. We don't even need to bother with friends. We don't need anything. 3 weeks later, the art director came to me and said, hey, dude, we're going to run out of cardboard. So we were shooting next door to Solar City. And when he told me this, I had a panic attack. And then I sort of wandered around the industrial park that we were in. And I looked at Solar City, and I thought, well, I'll give it a shot. I actually am a customer of theirs. I said, hey, I've got solar panels on my roof, and I use you guys. Hey, thanks. And I'm looking for cardboard for a movie I'm shooting next door. Oh, yeah, we got a giant dumpster next door that we throw all of our XX cardboard in. We use it to ship all of the panels. Help yourself. So for the next 3 weeks, every single day of mine started by dumpster diving at Solar City for additional cardboard. They provided an enormous amount of additional cardboard because we wouldn't have been able to finish the movie without them. So that was a long-winded answer, but
I think I see someone way at the back there.
so we did 1 month of build and 1 month of shoot, but that's a bit misleading because we were building every single minute of the shoot. The build space that we had, first of all, wasn't big enough to house all of what goes into the movie. There are 26 rooms in the maze, plus the apartment itself, which was constructed. We didn't shoot that in an apartment. We actually created the apartment from scratch and shot the whole thing on a, Bill likes to say sound stage, I like to say shitbox. But anyway, a big room is where we shot it, and that room was only big enough to hold about 2 sets at a time. So the camera and lighting team and cast would be on one side of the room, and the art department would be on the other side of the room, and the instant we called cut, every single take, you would hear all manner of hammers and saws and glue guns and people sweating and putting up walls and everything else. And as soon as the camera team was done shooting on one, they switched sides of the room, and the art department started on the other side of the room. So we were building all the way through the last day of production, and none of the sets, unfortunately, lasted more than about 24 hours. At the end of the movie where you see all the sets get destroyed, that happened at the end of each shooting scene. So we would shoot the scene that takes place on that set, and then we would shoot destroying that set so that we could have that little montage at the end. I don't know how long this is going to go, so before we go any further, I have a 20-second pitch. We have Gordon T-shirts for sale. I'll be in the lobby afterwards. We sell them for $20. The DVDs are $20 pre-sale. We're not allowed to distribute them just yet, but we will ship them to you. That includes shipping. We also do Blu-rays for $25. If you get 2 items, it's $5 off. I take credit cards. That's the end of the pitch.
Also, do you want to mention the clipboards going around?
Yeah, oh yeah, and there are a couple of clipboards going around. We're going to have a limited theatrical release in August, and we're still determining which cities it will be. So in the event that we end up playing in a theater here, we will notify you because we're going to have 0 advertising budget. So if you don't mind just throwing your city and your email down, we'll let you know when we come to where you're at.
And if it doesn't come to theatrical, or I mean, if it does, this film will be up on our iTunes page. If it comes out to iTunes, Cuff does have its own iTunes room, and you can find all of our previous selections. So
awesome! I did not know that.
This would
That's
be included on that as one of the featured ones for the year. Come when it's released.
That's awesome.
Right here.
Seeing how the film's named as Incompleteness, is there anything you wanted to include but ended up not putting in?
That's a great question. I was actually mildly surprised when our distributor, who's helping us out come August, asked for DVD bonus materials, and oh yeah, we got lots of behind the scenes stuff. And the director said, yeah, we've got some deleted scenes and alternate endings. And I went, what? I was unaware of that. They're really minor, really minimal stuff that I think are going to be ended up as bonus stuff. For the most part, what ended up in the movie is what was originally on the page. There are very small changes and iterations that happened in between.
Kevin?
Well, for starters, no, I never regretted cardboard. I mean, what drew me to this movie in the first place was just sort of the bizarre nature of it and the fact that I'd never seen anything like it, on the page, and I just wanted to be involved in that. And I think that's what ultimately drew in a lot of our art department too, who all worked for a third of what we should have been paying them. As far as safety and lights and all of that, look, we got all the proper permits. We made valiant efforts, especially very early in the process, to make everything properly safe with fire lanes and extinguishers and everything, and it was all there. But let me tell you, when you put 70 cast and crew in a relatively small space that is packed with cardboard and a lot of hot lights, all I can say is I'm very happy that nothing tragic happened, and I'm very happy that the fire department never showed up for a spot check, because we probably wouldn't have passed beyond day 3. It got pretty chaotic. I mean, yeah, I want to be able to say that it was safe all the way through day 20, but it was tough to keep it that way. It was really tough to keep it that way.
Anyone else? Oh, right here in the middle.
As Bill the director likes to say, I know what happens in the sequel, but nobody has asked me to make it yet. So is there a possibility of one? Yes, there's absolutely a possibility of one. It exists on paper. Whether or not it will come to pass remains to be seen.
Great. Anyone else?
Let's see one more there.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I think most independent filmmakers are going to tell you time and money are the biggest challenges, and that's definitely not any different here. I think probably the challenge that was sort of unusual or unique to this film was just keeping art department ahead of camera. Like I said, one half of the room was shooting, the other half of the room was building, and there were moments where the latter half wasn't keeping up, and it was just sort of a tension moment of like, oh my God, we need to get the camera over. We need to start lighting this. We need to start, camera blocking and rehearsing this, and they're just not ready. So that was the unique challenge to this film, was just we were using locations that didn't even exist until hours before we shot, and sometimes an hour or two after we were supposed to start shooting. So that was the biggest challenge specific to this. But really, time and money are always a problem.
All right. Well, thank.
Sorry,
Yeah, we've got another one right here.
Thank you.
There was a big cardboard vagina, but I'm really looking forward to showing this to my kids. Because, I think it's very inspiring, and it's almost disheartening to hear you talk about all the time and money, because to me what I was seeing was, this is something I could film in my basement with my kids. And on top of that, seeing all the very practical effects you guys were doing, I thought was a great introduction to say, hey, this is something you can actually do and you don't have to break your back doing.
I appreciate you saying that. The one anecdote I'll throw back at you is that the very first meeting I had with the initial scriptwriter, Stephen Sears, was December 2011. And he sat down across from me and with a very straight face told me that he thought we could probably be shooting this in February, in 2 months, which clearly was not going to happen, or at least was not going to produce this film. I think he had it in his head early on that we were going to do this with a handy cam and a handful of friends and some cardboard boxes in his apartment. And I guess you could have done that, but I'm not sure we would have played the Calgary Underground Film Festival, or perhaps anywhere else, had we done that. I'm sorry? Right, well, exactly. As well you shouldn't if you're an artist.
Did I see another one right here?
I tell you what, we basically said you didn't work on this film if you didn't get glue gun burns. Let me tell you, glue gun burns suck. I have actual visible scars from those damn things. It hurts. Paper cuts, I don't know. We really, God, knock on wood, we got pretty lucky. We didn't have any major mishaps. The single most sort of perilous spot was the origami swamp, the origami room that they go into, because it looks as though it's a surface filled with origami, but actually a lot of it was just visqueen plastic covered in the origami in the crumpled paper. So we told people over and over and over again, don't walk beyond this edge of the platform, don't walk beyond this edge of the platform. But it wasn't marked because it was covered in origami. You couldn't see the edge of the platform. So like 3 or 4 people took a dive off the edge of the platform, including the director. So, it was 3 feet. It wasn't the end of the world, but, moments like that are not ideal. I don't know, paper cuts? I don't know, probably, but I'm sure there were some paper cuts. I'm sure there were some paper cuts.
All right, well, thanks so much. I really want to, these are the type of films that we just love to bring, but once we bring them here, we rely so much on you guys to tell your friends. There's an encore tomorrow. Like I said, hopefully it gets a little bit of theatrical play. Maybe the Globe will bring it back. Going to be iTunes. These are the type of films we spend all year searching for, and we really hope you guys can help us get the word out and tell your friends and find an audience for this even bigger than this. So that'd be much appreciated if you would do that.
Thank you all for coming out. Thanks for sticking around. Thank you to Cuff. This was awesome. This was a great international premiere. And I will be in the lobby for a few minutes if anybody wants to buy a T-shirt or pre-order a DVD. Thanks.